All this talk of unknowable monsters she'd seen with her very salted sight brought buzzing back between her ears, the beat of 6 legs against Sangar like the pound of drums. The shepherd's fluttered wings ripping, impaled before the singing cave strewn with ropes. While Eschi and Schneider once again rubbed each other wrong, she faced faint memories of a place she still could not recall. A cold idea settled. Scylla knew where this thing lurked. She'd struck a silent deal. At what cost? Was Evren the price? Was she? Was Jor? Was Scylla feeding it like a coon, tossing bloody morsels for its loyalty? Or was she its lure, bobbing on the surface of Turnus and catching fish? Flinching from the cold, she knew an opportunity had presented itself in all the noise of her dream. A glimpse caught between the flaps of a tent. While everyone's attention rested on Eschi, like some speaker, she snatched a bottle from O's pull and sought the sweet dysphoria within. She could never face those horrors again, not without waters of courage. "Foxy!" O shouted, spewing brandy mid-sip. "For fuck's sake, lass!" Reyth burned her breath with all that remained and tossed the bottle. It shattered against the war machine. So close to the cap Boda busted, Kamut got a wise idea and tossed his bottle the same. Worse off than she, others took to the game and began tossing their finished brews, none making it into the hole. Until Ty, he'd a glint of triumph at the praise of his last brother and remaining nephews. That shine dulled into darkness when Reyth tested him with a wink. Wryness rebuffed, she knew the look of his hate leering over Auric, now just as back upon the Agla, when she stood between him and Quet. The memories of then, when Evren, she sunk deeper into the drink. Despite her need, Reyth couldn't keep it down, and a hiccup stole her pride, while Noshkri's fluster at the breaking of the glass gave her giggle. The froggy could pull medicine from the breath, but not glass from the shore. Reyth yerped again, her belly full of a new flavor of bouncy butterflies. Even the frog laughed at her now, from Sophie's simple chirp to Eschi's chuckle. O clapped her back and bloviated, "Lass, ya bust me stones, ya do." Reyth sighed through her teeth, realizing that in her rush to drown the memories, she'd given Eschi yet another chance at silence. She wondered why he so often chose to slip away. "You know, O," Schneider had to drink his rising laughter away, "for a sexless doll you certainly talk a lot of cock and stones. You're hardly a man." Reyth didn't like this feeling of familiarity she found for Boda, like she were some sister with whom to tease, but the two exchanged a glance that only roused O's rising bluster. "What did you say?" Sputtering, red as Mira on a hot thaw, he smashed his bottle upon a seated stump and hurled black glass at Schneider. "What have me organs got to do with me gender?" Schneider laughed off the bottle that nearly knocked him cold, glanced about to Sophie, Boda, and herself. Have I besmirched your honor in front of the ladies? You put those dukes up right now, or your teeth will taste like gumballs." "All right, little man." Schneider sighed, dusting himself off and rising. This turn riled the rough and tumble. Boda hooted and Kamut whistled. O ripped off a white shirt stained with booze, and Schneider unbuttoned his jacket, tossing it to Sophie. Failing to catch it, the purple pompous coat landed over her head. "Cuffs it is. Just keep it above the belt, shorty? It's only fair." As fresh bottles popped, Reyth would have enjoyed a good fight. She even checked on Eschi to see if he'd step in. But no. He found more opportunity to withdraw like a turtle, cracking open his booklet to which Sophie said he used to keep his thoughts in order. She'd even had a few pictures of pages captured from over the shoulder during their early days in Sangar, before her uncle had taught Eschi to keep his treasures like Gestalt close at hand. He had less flowers than he did then, Reyth noted. His writing seemed so different than what had been read aloud and burned poor Sophie. Reyth wondered if Scylla could slither with dwellers in the dark, could she? As she spoke with so little certainty of strange skitterers, she wondered how he knew so clearly the danger it posed. Yes, it had taken Evran, but maybe on behalf of Scylla. An animal couldn't be faulted for the choices Sangar gave it. If Gregor wondered that the Dark Ones could think of snaring it, maybe she could beat them to it. Maybe it was the sour sweet of bourbon and mead, but she didn't want to dwell any more on the yellow in her sight. She swallowed a desperate large gulp and was afraid she'd choke before sputtering and spitting out whatever remained. The onlookers' roar announced the fight's conclusion. She'd slipped on Gregor's longing and missed all the fun. Schneider lay over the doused fire, pudgy cheeks puffed, the pomp dazed after having been tossed over O's rippling shoulders. Bareback tortured as if by a Nesher's flay, lashed and carved. O's tattoos slithered between and leapt over the old scars like the teeth of stitches. Wraith stood, forgetful of the watcher in her lap. Its fall and deft landing disoriented her, spinning her world round the mountain's back. Curling over to keep her belly full, those wanting more after the brief bout found interest in her. As she refocused, calling Raspberry back to perch, they regarded her in the dim light of EU fainting through the canopy. None saw her so well as Raspberry allowed her to see their dilated fixations. Sangar had blessed them with this darkness, as it kept rash decisions secret from the enemy peering through her looking-glass. Ishi hadn't believed her, but she needn't wonder that Scylla watched them. EU's vision, a torrent of confusing forbearance, had her certain of that as much as the fish's betrayal. Perhaps even now Scylla sat with them. What all does she see? What does she know? Was it fondness for the Twish or worry of Wraith? Or had fear of Eshi really gotten to her so much that she would ally herself with Dark Ones like who blinded her? If the fish had been talked into cutting the outsiders out, could Arik be prone to the same? Or Kamut? Or Tai? "Gotta piss or something, Foxy?" O asked. Schneider played off his tumble, giving his opponent an apologetic handshake. O strutted tallest amongst them, back to his seat, and stole back a bottle from the fresh selection just kicked over beside Wraith's boots. "The cave," Wraith said, taking a deep breath. "I hear it wanders the mother's mirage. Within the roots of moss, throughout the lands lay labyrinths ever-changing, carved not by cutting currents through mountain rock, but by sides of Myria through molted stone." "Is ya ever on something else for a span?" Boda asked. "We should listen to her," Arik said. "She's seen more than any of us." "All it takes is a fool to misread Ayu's gifts, Pap," Mira said. The ripples of uncertainty throughout their waters rolled over the stagnant stone of Eshi, who lifted his attention from the small book. "I have heard that place comes only to those who are called," Wraith said, tugging the threads of vivid dreams as she tugged sleeve by sleeve the torn black coat of the ghost-eyed girl, the only garb thick enough to keep Raspberry's talons off skin. The holes punched through the back with rips and tears of the bayonet would need to be sewn with hemp thread, and she wondered the rock claw's patches might do, if only she had claimed the Dark One's owls from the white-tailed dead, or the gold filigree of the scryer. Then she could wear them with more pride than a mere grave robber. The cave and her dweller are daughters of Sangar too, no?
"You know where you're going? Wraith, I assure this is no forest childling. At best, it's a dangerous predator that uses Myria to hunt."
Gregor's hesitance, even after everything, caught her flat of foot. "No," she recoiled, turning her back to the gathering to face his scrutiny. "I's gonna look. I's gonna return to the Weep, to seek the Speaker, if you wish to join me. Ray," Arik said, "remember the cost of last time."
"If your speaker is there,"
Gregor added,
"I will seek her."
"Shush it, Uncle. Eshi, help or you will stay out of me way," Wraith said. "I don't understand why ye insist on cowardice. Is this the way of all your ruck? Where is the world if it is so large? Why do they not help us? How many evils must be for them to come, to help? If no one comes, I'll go alone." "Let her go, Greg," said Schneider. "It's only right to want to fight. Root 'em on, will ya? Give 'em hell, Foxy." I would fight for my land, Noshkree said. Had I not sold it all away?
This is the Iron Way,
Gregor said, squeezing Boundhilt.
It always fails.
Unlike brass, iron rusts, Sir Ben, said Schneider.
Brass patinas,
said Gregor. Above all, gold buys. Joined Noshkree, skinkish. The tension between Schneider and Gregor took the outsider's attention as each was forced to consider their place on either side of the divide, leaving those she'd known the longest, Arek, Tai, Boda, Kamut, and Mira, united in the Eshi's concern. "You're just gonna leave?" Kamut asked. "What about all us?" "The Malvas dog howls for more war," Boda said, slipping back into her seat, empty bottle dangling between her legs. "Let her go, if'n she wants to get herself killed." Reyth shook off their guilt. For their accusation, the silence of Sophie as she looked on frustrated her most of all, like a distant buzzing while trying to sleep. Before she wore her butchered mouth, she'd already said her piece. Dismay uttered in the warmth under blankets, she'd been the first to know and the first to object. Reyth turned a shoulder to her now, just as then, when she'd given up and hidden behind the gnarled scorner's tree. Her eyes, orange as the kumquat, ripe with small mousy anger, dredged up jealousy for the scarlet-maned, scatterbrained honeypot of fun and delight she could very well lose. For her looks, she was just an outsider. She couldn't be trusted with Sangar's wood. "I's going to the Wheep," Reyth repeated. "There be Scylla, where I think the fish knew, in a new camp that does no belong." "If'n you think we'll stop you, go and see," Tai sang in a cruel tone. "The shepherds will watch ye." "Rey, the tribe can go to Avis and seek shelter in these high hills." Arek's pain, his need for her, welled like tears. "We could grow rich with trade, share the wealth of the Rutland with the Rook, and the wealth of the Rook with that—" "Sangar's wealth is not to be given," Reyth shouted. In the facet of her new eyes she saw herself, seething over a wilting forevergreen, Arek bundled like gestalt in draping weave, small beneath her but unafraid. His gentle repose drew her aback into the green pinch of self-reflection. "Please," Arek begged. "We need your help to protect the people. I need you well for the sake of your tam." Like before, she turned her back to please and headed for her few belongings. What couldn't fit in her bag she'd leave in the trunk for Sophie to take.
"Reyth,"
Gregor said. Even his softest voice could break the squall.
"You asked why no one comes, why you must go it alone."
"I don't really care, Ishi. The people can protect themselves. She was a danger to everyone here. So long as Scylla watched, they all were her prey. "Someone must fight. I don't want to go alone. Any who'd come, I'd have the help." Gregor's pause drew her in. All of them.
"The camp is drunk. We should rest. Grow sober before we bear such truths and make rash designs. I warn you, my Twish friends, know the extent. I stand by the wisdom of withdrawal. Just as many of you were born within the breath, I too come from a generation before. As time grows old and the breath becomes distant, there'll be a day when most alive were born in the light. For 33 years, not a soul has been born under the same sky as I. That includes the Vermount Ostelamar, the High Cherish, and the artisans of Rucania. My order alongside the artisanry may have in my day swatted withers circles like the Triarchy Busts unions, but no more will anyone stand against them. To them, you are serviles, slaves to the immortal professors and their growing magistrate."
"What does that got to do with a thing?" Reyth thrust in challenge. "Tch, we's no one slaves."
"No, but no one. Not the coalition of the Crux, the gilded republics, or the denizens of Ave are willing to help you now. Why? They fear Thess's bright young moon, Iu's wail, Ugulu. If you refuse this crossing, your acts of blood for soil will only dry a shattered land." Gregor sought the pressed sugar dowry from close to his heart. First of a new catalogue, it sat closest to the letter of love inscribed on the inner cover. Even common flowers deserve a rare place. Let's take from this exodus a lesson. The way west is dangerous, but standing against the east will do more than chap your hides. Potentially a creature of unknown intent preys upon your young. In victory the sky shall crash upon your temples and aglas and raise Sangha low. Under their comet a crater where your valley grows, and not a soul will remember your mother's name. Wraith wore the doomsayer's bonnet, drawing the sympathies of some when she turned her hands back against him to reject his born palms, cruxes offered in honour. Kamut, that young fancier of a warrior, stepped up to join by her side.
If in the sky is dangerous, then cowards will find no haven beyond the haze. Maybe we need a new plan. The mother has many means beyond her people, or beasts like this Miro.
Wraith, speak not that name. Gregor thrust his blade to her side to intercede against the flicking flame, sheath on her hip. He'd thrust it as if to skewer, forcing her to meet him with the truth of her gaze. This drove Kamut away, maybe not in intent, but a reminder of fear served any budding warrior well. Bargain not with worse monsters than those you know. The rousing of ancient horrors and the rising of the sorcerer's star above the Artons can only mean one thing for those who reach for the waters of Tyrnus, drought.